What's up guys, it's Eric from Rare Candy, and today we're back with another deck and battle here on PTCGO, and this time we're going to be updating an old favorite of mine, and that's going to be Greninja BREAK. So Greninja kind of fell off the radar for a little bit there for the Sun and Moon format just because all of the grass hype that was going on. Decidueye Vileplume emerged as one of the best decks in the format. And even towards the beginning of the Sun and Moon format, Lurantis had some hype, so I think it just wasn't Greninja's time to kind of shine. But thanks to Guardians Rising, Greninja has gained some new tools that I think really push it back into the forefront of the game. So I'm really excited to be able to revisit this guy, and this is actually going to be the list that we took to a recent League Cup. If it's not posted at the time when you see this, it will be up soon. But yeah, me and Marcus both took this to a League Cup. Marcus did finish in top 8 and only whiffed top 4 because of a misplay on his part. But this is, I would say, at least a top 4 League Cup quality list for you guys to at least look at. But yeah, so let's just get into it and see how we've kind of updated this thing. So first of all, we're playing a 4-4-4-3 Greninja BREAK line. Pretty self-explanatory. Greninja's the star of the show. He's the only Pokemon we are going to be playing. So Greninja kind of sets itself up with the water duplicates attack that Frogadier has. So it lets you search your deck for up to 3 Frogadier and put them onto your bench. So we can kind of get around traditional evolution rules by, just evolving into this guy on the second turn and using water duplicates. Then we have a Greninja, 130 hit point, stage 2 with free retreat, which is fine. Does have that pesky grass weakness that I just mentioned, but nevertheless, I think it's still a decent card. So it has the attack Shadow Stitching, 40 for 1 energy. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, no Pokemon have abilities, so this can be a pretty disruptive attack against certain decks. If you do have to go against a Decidueye deck at some point, this could be a attack that you use to help win you that matchup at some point. Or if your opponent has kind of a dead hand, using Shadow Stitching can sometimes ensure they can't use things like Shaman. But the main way we're going to do the bulk of our attack damage with Greninja is going to be with Moonlight Slash. So for a water energy, you do 60 plus 20 more if you choose to return a water energy to your hand. So 80 for 1 is, it's been a decent attack cost. 80 for 1 is solid. But now, thanks to Choice Band, we can actually hit for 110, which is an amazing number to hit for, since we can two-shot pretty much almost everything in the game. We can one-shot Shamans now. It's just a very good number to hit for. And then Greninja BREAK is going to be how we're going to do the rest of our damage. So it's with this giant water shuriken ability. So once during your turn, you may discard a water energy from your hand if Greninja BREAK is your active Pokemon, and put 6 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So once you get a couple of these things out in play, it really quickly amplifies your damage output. So you can use this ability once, put 6 damage counters, retreat into another Greninja BREAK, put another 6 damage counters, and then you can use Moonlight Slash since you still haven't even attacked yet for the turn. So the deck is kind of slow to get going, but once you get a couple Greninja BREAKs, your damage kind of just goes through the roof with this thing. So that's going to be it for the Pokemon line. That is going to be it. We are foregoing Talonflame, Jirachi, any other tech cards we've previously seen in Greninja, and just doing our Greninja line. So going on to our supporter cards, we have 4 Sycamore, discard your hand, draw 7, and 4 N. Each player shuffles their hand into their deck and draws equal to their prize cards. Pretty standard draw supporters that you guys should be familiar with by now. Also playing 1 Ace Trainer. You can only play this card if you have more prizes left than your opponent. And if you're playing Greninja, or if you've ever played Greninja, you should know that you are usually the one who has more prize cards remaining, especially in the early game. But each player shuffles their hand into their deck and draws... Oh, I'm sorry, not each player, but both you shuffle your hands into your deck, but you draw 6, and your opponent only draws 3. So like I was saying, Greninja typically goes down on prizes first, and in the early portion of the game, when you're still trying to set up your board, Ace Trainer can be great. Or even in the late game too, like let's say, just for example, you have 3 prizes, your opponent has 2, you can play Ace Trainer to give you 6 cards instead of the 3 that N would give you. So definitely a great card in Greninja. One Fisherman, so put 4 basic energies from your discard pile into your hand. So with Giant Water Shuriken, we're going to be going through our water energies, and we need a way to reliably get them back into our hand. So that's why we're playing Fisherman. Also playing one Lysander. Even though we can snipe our opponent's board, we still want to be able to choose who we want to attack with our Moonlight Slash and Shadow Stitching. And like I was saying too, now that we have Choice Band, we can actually knock out Shamans with just one attack. So being able to Lysander them is going to be very important. So we're only playing one though, just because we can still snipe our opponent's board for most of the game if we want to. So for Reverse Seeker, just to reuse all of those different supporters we just mentioned. For Dive Ball, search your deck for a water Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's just get any Pokemon out of our deck. But Greninja is a very fragile deck in the opening turns, and it's very important you get 2 Froakies in play immediately. So we're playing some additional ball search cards to help with that. So first off, we're playing 2 Level Ball, search your deck for a Pokemon with 90 hit points or less, put it into your hand. And then we're also playing 2 Ultra Ball, discard 2 cards from your hand, and search your deck for any Pokemon. So like I said, we're just running these additional ball search cards just to help us, ensure that we always have a steady stream of our Greninja line. Okay, next up we have 2 Field Blower. This is a card Greninja has been begging for over the past year. Ever since Startling Megaphone went out of rotation, we have lacked a reliable form of tool removal to help deal with Garbodor. And that's where Field Blower is going to come in handy. Choose up to 2 combination of Pokemon Tool or Stadium cards in play and discard them. So the main thing we are going to be playing this for is to deal with the Garbotoxin Garbodor. So whenever that Garbodor has a tool attached to it, it shuts off abilities for all Pokemon in play. And doing 80 for 1 energy is okay, but this deck is so slow to get started and get set up. We don't really want to waste 3 turns or 4 turns setting up our board just to do 80 damage. We really need the abilities that we have on our Greninja Break. So Field Blower is going to come in handy there, but it's also good to discard things like tool cards or maybe Parallel Cities or any other tools or stadiums our opponent might be benefiting from. So next we're playing 1 Rescue Stretcher. It's a new card from Guardians Rising. Put a card from your discard pile into your hand or shuffle 3 Pokemon from your discard pile into your deck. So just a nice flexible form of recovery just to help us keep streaming our Greninjas. But then we're still playing 1 Super Rod, shuffle 3 of any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards from your discard into your deck. And so I think this is actually kind of important to play at least 1 Super Rod, just because there's going to be games where your Fisherman is prized and you're going to need a way to get energy back into your deck. And that's one thing I have noticed myself whiffing at times is, energy to use Giant Water Shurikens. And so I definitely think it is important to have a way to get energy back without relying exclusively on Fisherman. So that's why we're playing the 1-1 split between Super Rod and Rescue Stretcher. Okay, so next up we have 2 Max Potion. Heal all damage from one of your Pokemon. If you do, discard all energy from that Pokemon. So Greninja is actually a pretty beefy Pokemon. Once you evolve up to the break, it has 170 hit points, which is amazing actually for just a 1 prize attacker. So Max Potion is going to allow us to tank longer with the Greninjas, and also it's good for the mirror match. And that's something that's worth mentioning too. The Elite Cup we took this to, we were actually expecting 2 to 3 other Greninjas that we knew for sure were going to be there. So we kind of teched out this list to be able to, have a chance in the mirror match, or swing the mirror match in our favor. So Max Potion definitely comes in handy there, or just in general any deck that can't knock you out in 1 hit. But Greninja's great because it's a 1 energy attacker. So even if you have energy on you, you Max Potion off 1 energy, it's not a big deal. You can attach another one and keep attacking. But then there's also turns where you Moonlight Slash and you return the energy to your hand, and you actually get to heal all damage without discarding any energy. So Max Potion, definitely a nice natural fit into Greninja here. Okay, the other, I guess, crucial new item card we got from Guardians Rising is going to be Choice Band, like I've mentioned previously. So it's a tool card. The attacks of the Pokemon this card is attached to do 30 more to your opponent's active GX or EX. So this is great because, like I said, we can hit for 110 with our Greninjas. Or even if we want to do Shadow Stitching, we can hit for 70, which really isn't a bad number either. So I think Choice Band is definitely a great new addition to the deck. Muscle Band previously was great in Greninja before. We also had Bursting Balloon, which saw play, but I do think that as a tool has gotten a lot weaker since Field Blower is out. I think the guaranteed 30 damage is great. And even if you go against non-EX or GX decks, I think Greninja actually beats most of those anyway, so I think it's fine to only play 2 in this deck. Alright, and then I believe for the last trainer card we have here is 3 Silent Lab. Each basic Pokemon in play, hand and discard, has no abilities. So the first reason we're going to play this is to counter the Giratina promo that shuts off abilities for break Pokemon, but also Greninja is just a very slow deck, so if we can slow down our opponent and prevent them from playing things like Shaman and Tapu Lele in order for them to get set up, that'll really allow us some extra time to develop our board and get set up. Okay, and oh, actually we did miss one other card. We were playing 1 Pokemon Ranger, remove all effects of attacks on each player and his or her Pokemon. So the reason we were playing this in the list is because, again, we knew that there was going to be at the very least 3 other Greninja players, and we needed a way to remove the effects of Shadow Stitching on our own Greninjas. So you can play this to remove the effects of Shadow Stitching to allow you to use your own abilities against your opponent's Greninja deck. So if you're not expecting a whole lot of Greninja in your area, honestly, this is a terrible card. I always hate playing this in my decks just because it's like almost always a dead card. But again, if you know you are going to be facing a lot of other Greninjas when you're playing this deck, definitely a good card to include. And it's also good against Glaceon as well, and to a lesser extent maybe Giratina EX, which I think is declining in popularity a little bit, but nevertheless it can give you some outs against that as well. But yeah, so that's going to be the trainer cards, and then onto the energy we have 3 Splash Energy. It can only be attached to water Pokemon, but it provides water energy to that Pokemon, and whenever it gets knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, you get to put that Pokemon in, and unfortunately not all cards attached to it back into your hand, but you get all evolution pieces. So that means if a Greninja Break gets knocked out, we actually get Froakie, Frogadier, Greninja, and Greninja Break back into our hand. So it just helps us keep streaming our Greninjas, and especially under item lock, this is great because we can't use our rescue stretchers and super odds. And of course from there, just 7 water energy, just so we can attack and use Giant Water Shuriken. So yeah guys, that is the list we are going to try out. Definitely excited to have Greninja be a relevant deck again. We actually did a big discussion video too, if you guys did not see, talking about what current and old decks kind of get better and worse in the new Guardians Rising format. So if you want to hear our full thoughts on Greninja and all of the other existing or previously existing decks, I'll be sure to put a link in the description to that as well. But I'm going to switch over to the battle portion of the video and show you how this one looks in action. Alright guys, so it looks like we found a game. We're just going to call the coin. And we do get to win the flips. That's definitely good. It's always good to go first with Greninja. Just since this is kind of a slow deck, and I see a grass deck box and a Rowlet coin, so yeah, we might have a tough road ahead of us if this is indeed a Decidueye deck. That is definitely one of this deck's absolute worst matchups, and he flips over Oddish and Rowlet. So yep, so let's see how this one goes. I do see we have a Frogadier prized, which is unfortunate, but we still have 3 total, so that's enough to work with. And nothing else too crazy priced. We have pretty much everything that we need in order to pull out a game here. But we can put down Silent Lab. Hopefully our opponent does not have a Force of Giant Plants, and this will slow them down. I'm hoping. And here, I mean, maybe we can Lysander the Oddish. You know, we don't really want to play N since we have Frogadier in hand, so let's just play the Lysander, force our opponent to have a float stone potentially, and maybe you know, hopefully this Oddish can get stuck here for maybe 2 turns and buy some extra time before we start getting knocked out. But here we're just going to attach a Splash Energy and end our turn. So does our opponent have the Forest to buffer stadium? That's going to be the big thing. So they have a Trainer's Mail. And it's just a Revitalizer, so good, we are in the clear. Okay, but he has another Trainer's Mail. It's going to get an end, so if they want to play end, I'm actually okay with that. Just because even though, you know, we only have 3 cards in hand, and they are cards that we like, if our opponent wants to refresh our hand, I won't turn that down at the same time. Okay, yeah, so we definitely still have a workable hand here, and our opponent does not have the Vileplume, so we are in a fine spot, I think. So here we can use Dive Ball, grab a Frogadier to use Wire Duplicates this turn, and do we play the end? We can, but our opponent didn't hit like really anything they needed. I don't want to refresh their hand for them. I'd prefer them to force them to have a supporter or something of their own to try to get a new hand, as opposed to us doing it for them. So we're just going to Wire Duplicates. In case our opponent does have a Gloom, but no Force of Giant Plants yet, so we're still looking okay for the moment. Here, opponent's going to Lysander. Ugh. It's actually kind of annoying because now we're going to have to waste a Splash Energy to retreat this Froakie. Or, you know, we could just sit here and bubble, but I don't know if that's the right play either, because our opponent will probably just, you know, get out a Vileplume at some point and break the, you know, break the paralysis. Our opponent doesn't really look like they have much, so actually I think what I want to do is attach this Splash and retreat to our Greninja. And usually this is something I wouldn't do until we have, you know, a couple breaks in play, but I actually want to use Shadow Stitching here just to prevent our opponent from, you know, top decking like an Ultra Ball, or, you know, maybe they have a Shaman in hand and they have Forest, and they just need Force to be able to use the ability. So I just want to ensure that our opponent has a dead hand for another turn. But they did have the energy to retreat, which is a pain. But luckily we did have a Splash Energy on this Greninja, so we are going to be able to get it back into our hand. Okay, so here we can put down Frogadier, we can put down Greninja and the Froakie. So Splash Energy definitely coming in handy right now. And I don't want to do this, but I want to end. And the reason I'm not attaching an energy is because I'm trying to dig for a splash if possible. Or in the case of Greninja Break here, the more waters in our deck, the more chance we have of drawing them to use Giant Water Shuriken. So here we're just going to grab a Greninja Break for the following turn. And here, so what do we want to do? We can definitely Giant Water Shuriken. I'm tempted to take a knockout on this Gloom, but this Decidueye is going to be a huge threat. We really need to get this off the board as soon as possible. So what do we do here? I think we just retreat into Froakie and try to bubble. Yeah, I hate to waste the energy, but if we can buy a turn here, that would be great. But unfortunately, we missed the coin flip. And also, luckily, none of our waters are prized this game, so this will be a water that does hit the discard without us getting any damage from it. But luckily, like I said, we still have all of our other waters in the deck. But our opponent's starting to get set up. They have they have a Trainer's Mail to get Level Ball. The one thing I don't want to see is Ultra Ball. I do not want to see Vileplume hit the board this turn. Okay, so they have a Dartrix. So they're going to do Feather Arrow. And Feather Arrow luckily isn't too relevant in this matchup, just, well, you wouldn't think, but just because Decidueye can knock out everything we have in one hit, the extra damage usually does not come into play. Okay, but here we're going to evolve into Greninja Break, and then here we can bump his Stadium and end. Put him down at a lower hand size. Hopefully we can disrupt him enough to get set up a bit more. And okay, so this is actually a pretty good hand. I like this one. Well, not so much for this turn, but for next turn, we'll really be in a decent spot because we have this Fisherman. Here we can level ball, and I think we just need to sacrifice another Froakie this turn. Or, you know, we could attack with the regular Greninja. I guess that's a possibility. Here, definitely want to Verse Seeker just in case Vileplume comes into play. And I really do want Lysander back, but I think it's important that we have a draw supporter for the turn after we use Fisherman. So we can retreat, and you know, we could retreat into our other Greninja Break and use Giant Water Shuriken, but I really don't want to, I guess, keep... Oh, yeah, I forgot we haven't even used this one yet. But yeah, so we can use Giant Water Shuriken, and I think we should just retreat into the Froakie. I think it's probably best. Now I wish I would have gotten Lysander since we got the N off the prizes. But here we're just going to sacrifice the Froakie. And next turn we can Fisherman for our energy to chew Giant Water Shurikens and still attack and knock out this Decidueye. Here opponent's going to end that Fisherman away. I'm not happy about that, but we still hit 2 waters off the end. So, you know, we're in a bad spot. You know, it's going to be 5-3 prizes here after our opponent's turn. But, you know, we have 2 Greninja Breaks. That's the plus side here. Okay, so they are going to knock out the Froakie, but this turn, I think we should be able to get a knockout. We can Giant Water Shuriken, putting this Decidueye up to 130, and then we just need another Giant Water, which we have, and then an energy off whatever support we play. That's the only sketchy thing. So let's do Giant Water, put 6 damage counters on this Decidueye, and we have 2 different plays we can make here, I think. We can Giant Water again and go for an energy, or we can attach the water and dig for a Choice Band. I forget how many waters we've gone through, so I'm not sure which we have the greater odds of hitting here, but okay, yeah, it looks like I'm trying to go for that Choice Band play. And luckily our opponent still does not have Vileplume out, so we can grab this Lysander back to reuse at some point as well. And here we're just going to end. Could have played the Rescue Stretcher, but all we have are Froakies. And man, that is rough. So I'm actually glad that we did not attach to our other Greninja Break, and this way, you know, one of our Pokemon is going to get knocked out no matter what. So I would prefer it to have been this Greninja as opposed to the Break. But here, this is a tough situation. We can Moonlight Slash, putting them up to 170, but then a Giant Water Shuriken would not be enough to knock it out. So I definitely just want to Moonlight Slash, and that way we can reuse this water to do Giant Water Shuriken next turn. Okay, so here our opponent is going to a Level Ball, grabbing a Rowlet. Okay, another Osh is going to come down, and our opponent's going to end us. And okay, so this is an interesting hand here. We have some options just right off the bat looking at this. So we can definitely, we have 5 prizes. We're going to knock out this Decidueye no matter what. So how do we want to do it? That's the question. We can take a knockout on this. We're going to have to knock out a 1 prize Pokemon on our opponent's next turn here. So we'll probably have to knock out the Oddish. We have Lysander, so we can knock out Shaman. And, ooh, I actually kind of like that. And here, I just gotta warn you guys, I actually made a really bad misplay this turn. This is an important turn for sure. So we can actually Giant Water Shuriken. And, yeah, I think we should knock out the Oddish. But here, I think I completely ruined this. I think we desperately needed to have knocked out the Oddish and Lysandered up Shaman, or on the flip side, knock out Oddish and then just Shadow Stitching for the knockout on this Decidueye. Because then the following turn, if we had knocked out the Decidueye with Shadow Stitching, we could have literally just Lysandered up Shaman to win the game since we have Choice Band. Or, God, yeah, so I think I messed up super hard here. think I was just thinking, you know, my deck's kind of thin. Maybe I'll top deck the energy I need, or a Fisherman to pull off the win for the following turn. But oh god, yeah, I hate myself right now for this one, guys. So we can, actually, we have a couple plays here. So we can Lysander up something, and then just plan to snipe around it. Well, here I'm thinking about using Lysander, as you can see. So I'm gonna grab Tauros, just because it has a 3 retreat cost. It's probably not going anywhere. So here, even though I think we did misplay a little bit, knocking out the Decidueye with Giant Water Shuriken, you know, we still have an out here, so we can use Giant Water Shuriken to knock out this Oddish, like I've been saying. And then next turn, we can Sycamore and hopefully just snipe around this Tauros. So, or just knock out the Tauros altogether, since we have Choice Band. Okay, and we have another Choice Band. So we're still in an okay spot. I definitely think we made a big misplay, since we would have been able to just knock out whatever we wanted next turn. But like I said, Tauros has a bigger tree cost. Okay, he has a double colorless energy, not a huge deal. Only thing I'm worried about is Floatstone, since our opponent has not played one yet this game, I don't believe. So as long as this Tauros remains in the active spot, I think we actually win. If he retreats, we're kind of done for, I think. Or if we top deck a Versus Seeker for like a Lysander or something, we could potentially try to stall again something else. But I'm not sure if we're going to have that kind of time, just because our opponent has 3 Decidueyes in play. We'll just have to see how this goes. Our top deck is going to basically decide everything for us. And here, our opponent is going to Razor Leaf. And just a Splash Energy. Oh god, guys, I am sorry. I definitely made a scrubby misplay on my last turn. Otherwise, we would have just had a game in our hand. Our opponent didn't even have an end to get rid of our hand. So we would have just had a Lysander and an Energy ready to go to knock out a Shaman on this turn. So, oh yeah, I feel like an idiot, guys. I am so sorry. But nevertheless, we still made this game insanely close against Decidueye. Definitely one of this deck's worst matchups. So, but you can see, just once you get 2 Greninja Breaks in play, even against a grass deck like this, you can start to do a crazy amount of damage with this deck. But yeah, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this updated look at Greninja here. Definitely a deck I'm excited to see come back into the forefront, like I said earlier. But as usual, guys, feel free to like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out our merch over at PTCGO.com. If you can pick up something to help support the channel, it'd mean a lot to us. But with that, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you for the next one.